If you are following along with me this morning in your Bible, we are going to be reading from John the Evangelist. And I will be reading from the 11th chapter, verses 17 through, till I get tired and stop. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary sat in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, he who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying quietly, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she quickly rose and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Then Mary, when she came where Jesus was and saw him, fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind have kept this man from dying?" May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be the resurrection to us all. Amen. What do we do with this passage? I'm not always quite sure, as someone who becomes entangled in science today. I think of Amy Semple McPherson. Does anybody remember this woman of God? Some of you older folks might remember. But she would always start out her services with this simple statement. And she'd say, "I believe in miracles." And then she would move on. She was known as a faith healer. She was also known as someone who was resurrected back from life, because she in fact faked her own death. Amy Semple McPherson had left a nice little note saying that someone was that she walked off, she left her clothes right by the big beach in New York, and then they couldn't find her. She said that she had been later kidnapped and brought to Mexico, and then she was returned, and we're not quite really sure what happened to her, but we find that she was brought back to us. Well, we don't have such an interesting story with Lazarus. We don't find that he was brought off to India or far away. We find that he is a sick man who just happens to die, but he is a friend of Jesus. Well, as I thought about this recently, I have watched a movie that is very near and dear to my heart now. It was never a story I much cared for, and the story comes to us through Disney's Tangled. Has anybody seen this recently? You who have little kids or not little kids. Tangled is a movie about Rapunzel. And Rapunzel, at the very beginning, we find that the sun had shone on the darkness of the land, and a teardrop from the sun came down to the ground, and up from that rose a flower. A flower that gave new life, gave rejuvenation to those who called upon its power. And we find that an old witch, her name was Mother Gothel, as they call her in the story. Mother Gothel takes care of this flower. And tell me what people do to flowers. I hear you're yours.
You do?
I hear yours. Up there, come on. Tell me what they do with flowers.
We cut them off.
You cut them off, but before you cut them off, what do you do to them?
Fertilize them.
You fertilize them and you may sing to them, right? Yeah, some of us people, we've heard of people singing to flowers and that they grow from the dirt, not only from fertilizer, but from singing. There's been tests done on flowers that if you play them symphonic music from Bach and Beethoven, they grow really large and beautiful. And if you play Metallica for them, they die off the good. So we find that Mother Gothel had a voice that was more in keeping with the Bach tradition versus Metallica. And she sang to this flower, and we hear the story of how a young woman is about to give birth. And she becomes very ill, and it says that when people are ill, they are often looking for a miracle. And so the whole kingdom goes and looks for the queen a miracle. And they happen to come upon Mother Gothel's flower. The flower that came from the sun, that came from up above. Well, they went and they got the flower and they put it into a tea, and the mother drank it down, and when she gave birth, she had a healthy baby girl, and she was well. And the odd thing is that her hair was the color of the sun. And that whenever you might cut a small piece, it would turn dark again. So her hair was living on through the flower. It became like a flower. It was a revelation of the sun above. And as she grew, she became her hair. What happened to her hair? Do you remember that part? It grew longer and longer. I would love to be Rapunzel because, it just isn't working for me right now. But as she grew in grace, and she grew as someone who cared about the world around her. Well, one day we find that a man comes who is evading the authorities and begins to climb up her tower. Now, this tower was very tall, and as someone who's not very fit, I would imagine it would just be to the top here. And he climbed up there, and she does something that many women think about doing when someone breaks into their house. She hits him over the head with a frying pan. Knocks him clean out, and after that we find that they build a relationship as they travel on